No one tells you that healing feels like dying. They promise you light, peace, wholeness, but they never say that healing is the slow unraveling of everything that once kept you safe. They never mention that every step forward feels like a funeral for the person who got you here. Because healing isn't the return of joy, it's the collapse of illusion. It's not a victory, it's a shedding of dreams, of identities, of people, especially people. The more you heal, the more you lose. And not just the ones who hurt you, not just the obvious villains, but the ones you loved, the ones you built your life around, the ones who never learned to meet you beyond your wounds. Because that's what no one warns you about. Most of your relationships were built on unhealed versions of you. They weren't made to last. They were made to survive. You became who they needed you to be. Smiled when you wanted to scream. Nodded when your soul was shaking. You performed wellness long before you ever knew what peace felt like. But healing ruins the performance. It strips the stage bare. It forces you to say things like, I don't agree, and this doesn't feel right anymore, and I'm not okay with that. And suddenly, the people who loved your silence begin to resent your voice. This is what growth really costs. Comfort, connection, familiarity. You don't just wake up one day healed and whole. You wake up exiled, alien to your own life, surrounded by the ghosts of who you used to be and the people who liked you better broken. They say healing is beautiful, but beauty isn't always gentle. Sometimes beauty is the forest fire that clears what was never meant to survive. You burn, not to punish yourself, but because fire is the only language trauma understands. So you light the match. You confront the memories. You hold the grief you locked away. You look in the mirror and don't flinch when you say, that wasn't love, that was control. Or that wasn't support, that was manipulation. And when you speak those words, the people who depended on your denial will call you selfish. They'll call you dramatic, difficult, delusional. But what they're really saying is, come back to who you were. You were easier to love when you didn't love yourself, because healing threatens their comfort. It exposes the dynamics they swore were normal. It reveals that your pain was never random. It was patterned, passed down, protected. And now you've stopped protecting it. Now you've chosen to heal. And healing for most people is betrayal. You'll lose friends. Family will grow distant. Lovers will fall out of rhythm. Even your goals will start to feel foreign. You'll outgrow the version of success you once sold your soul to chase. The dreams you had when you were in survival mode, they don't belong to you anymore. They belong to a version of you that thought love was earned and rest was weakness. You don't need to prove yourself to be worthy of peace. You never did. But that version of you, the overachiever, the peacemaker, the fixer, that's who the world applauded. So when you stop performing that identity, don't expect applause. Expect silence. Expect confusion. Expect people to say, you've changed, like it's an insult. They don't understand that healing isn't adding. It's subtracting, unlearning, undoing. Healing is the art of becoming less agreeable, less reactive, less dependent. And with each layer you peel away, something familiar leaves with it. You don't lose because you're doing something wrong. You lose because you're doing it right. You lose people who were never meant to stay past your survival. You lose places that only felt like home because you were too numb to feel the walls. You lose versions of yourself you spent decades pretending were real. You lose, and it hurts deeply. Because even pain becomes a comfort when it's all you've ever known. Even chaos feels like home when silence has always been a stranger. But you're learning now. Learning that peace isn't passive. It's not sitting still and letting the world tear you apart. Peace is choosing to walk away even when it breaks your heart. Peace is saying no with a trembling voice and standing by it anyway. Peace is letting go of people who make you question your sanity just to feel seen. And that kind of peace doesn't come with company. Not at first. Because few people are willing to walk with you into that kind of wilderness. Fewer still will understand why you had to burn the bridge just to stop setting yourself on fire. But if you keep going, through the ache, through the quiet, through the bone-deep loneliness of becoming, something begins to shift. You stop craving the things that once comforted your chaos. You stop chasing the people who only knew how to love the broken you. And for the first time, you hear something new. Silence. But not the heavy kind. Not the silence of abandonment or exile. This silence is different. It doesn't hurt. It holds you. And it whispers something you never thought you'd believe. You're not lost. You're just becoming. But becoming isn't glamorous. It's not a montage of yoga retreats and journal entries, tied together with soft piano music and an inspirational quote. It's brutal. It's boring. It's terrifying. And most days, it's lonely. Because becoming isn't about arriving. It's about unraveling. There is no final form. There's just the quiet decision, every single day, to not go back. Not go back to people who smiled with their mouths, but wounded with their hands. Not go back to patterns that felt like love because they were all you ever knew. Not go back to the roles you played so others could stay comfortable in their delusion. This is the price of healing. You lose your excuses. You lose the shield of ignorance. You lose the ability to pretend. You lose the option to blame everyone else forever. You begin to see how you were complicit in your own suffering. Not because you wanted to be, but because you didn't know another way. But now you do. And that knowledge, that clarity, it costs everything. You see the manipulation behind the smile, the guilt hidden in the compliment, the control woven into the love. You see it all, and you can never unsee it. So you speak up. You say, "This isn't okay anymore." And they say, "You've changed." And you have. You've become dangerous to those who fed on your silence. You've become unpredictable to those who relied on your compliance. You've become distant to those who only knew how to reach you through guilt. And yet somewhere deep in the ache of loss, there's something else growing. Something subtle, sacred, and new. Self-trust. You begin to believe your own voice. You begin to value your own presence. You begin to sit in your own energy and not feel the need to escape it. And that's terrifying for someone who spent their life running from themselves. But this is what healing does. It forces you to stop running, to stand still, to feel what you never gave yourself permission to feel. All of it. The grief, the rage, the longing, the regret. You sit with it. And eventually, it softens. Not because it disappears, but because you stop resisting it. Because you realize pain isn't your enemy. Denial is. Pain has always tried to get your attention, to wake you up, to pull you out of the stories that kept you small. And now you're listening. Now you hear it not as punishment, but as invitation. An invitation to finally become someone new. Not because you hate who you were, but because you love who you're becoming. You forgive yourself. Not to excuse the past, but to release its grip. You let go, not to forget, but to be free. You stop clinging. Not because you no longer care, but because you finally understand that real love doesn't require you to shrink. And maybe for the first time, you realize that solitude isn't emptiness. It's sacred ground. A place where your true self speaks. A place where healing isn't something you do. It's something you allow. And in that space, without noise or narrative, you feel it. Peace. Not as a destination, but as a frequency. You tune to it like a song that it's always been playing, just buried beneath the static of survival. And you start to see that everything you lost wasn't loss at all. It was release. The people who left weren't taken, they were removed. The identities you shed weren't destroyed, they were never yours. The dreams you buried weren't failures, they were exits from lives you were never meant to live. This is what healing is, remembering. Remembering who you were before the world taught you to forget. Remembering what it feels like to belong to yourself. Remembering that you never needed fixing, only returning. You don't become whole through addition. You become whole through integration. The wounded you, the wise you, the lost you, the angry you, they're all part of the same story. All you ever needed was permission to feel it all. And now finally you do. So the next time the grief returns, because it will, don't run. Sit with it. Ask it what it came to teach you. Ask it what you're still holding on to. And when it speaks, don't shrink away. Listen. Because pain, when listened to deeply, always points to the wound. And the wound, when held with love, always points to your truth. Not the truth they gave you. The truth you remembered. The one that says, you don't have to perform for love. You don't have to earn your place. You don't have to carry what they couldn't heal. You don't have to keep the peace by destroying your own. Let it fall apart. Let it burn. Let the tower of old selves collapse into ash. Because in that ash, something ancient rises. Not a new identity, but an old soul finally unmasked. And when you meet them, when you meet you, there won't be fireworks. There won't be fanfare. There will just be silence. The kind that holds. The kind that heals. The kind that says, you made it. Not because you won, but because you finally stopped running. And for the first time, you stayed. If this spoke to something in you that words couldn't quite name, let it echo forward. Share the silence, speak the fire, spread the spiral. This is Philospiral.